Hess Week. It is Hess Week, and one of my favorite times of the year. Hess Week was born out of a generous endowment from the family of Robert L. Hess, the fund and the Hess family for their ongoing and generous support. The tradition of Hess Week has been continued through the tireless efforts of the Wolf Institute, named for Dean Ethel R. Wolf, who helped bring the Institute to life. Brooklyn College is known for excellence in the humanities, the disciplines that undergird the core values of the academy: critical thinking, freedom of inquiry, the pursuit of truth, and the importance of fact, reason, and persuasion, particularly in these times as these values are under attack today by forces that seek to undermine higher education as a whole. We must come together and celebrate and defend the humanities today. For nearly half a century, the Ethel R. Wolf Institute has thrived in its mission to engage in critical conversations of broad public import. Today is no different. We are eager to hear from Professor Russell Jeung, a nationally recognized scholar, public intellectual, and community-engaged researcher who bridges academic inquiry and social impact. Jeung is a professor of Asian American Studies at San Francisco State University, where he's taught since 2002 and helped shape one of the nation's leading programs in ethnic studies. His scholarship focuses on race, religion, social movements, and Asian American community life. Jeung is also co-founder of Stop AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander Hate. Stop AAPI Hate, a national initiative launched in 2020 that transformed how anti-Asian racism is documented, understood, and addressed in public policy and public discourse. Through this work, Professor Jeung has elevated thousands of community voices and helped inform responses at the local, state, and national levels. In recognition of his extraordinary impact, Time magazine has named Professor Jeung one of the 100 most influential people of 2021, citing his leadership in confronting racism and advancing civil rights for vulnerable communities. We are so lucky to have Professor Russell Jeung here with us today and for the duration of this great week with so many exciting events. Thank you to the director of the Ethel R. Wolf Institute, Professor Gaston Alonso, and his entire team, including Kiana Benjamin and the students and faculty on its board of advisors. I now want to turn the podium back to Gaston to continue opening Hess Week 2026. I'm sure you're all eager to hear from Russell Jeung, as I am. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, President Anderson, and I want to thank the provosts, the deans, the faculty, the staff, the students, the community members who have joined us today. Now, before we go on, I do want to let you know that we are recording this event and it will be available in the Wolf Institute YouTube channel. Now, my next honor is to introduce the Dean of the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Phil Napoli.
Well, good morning, President Anderson, Provost Bedford, Professor Jeung, and honored guests. On this bright, crisp, beautiful spring morning, on behalf of the departments and programs and centers in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, I'm honored to welcome Professor Jeung to our college. During an online event hosted by the Wolf Institute in December with Professor Jeung and last year's Hess Scholar, Melissa Murray, they reflected on the following passage from his memoir, At Home in Exile, Finding Jesus Among My Ancestors and Refugee Neighbors. It read, "Justice requires assuming one's corporate responsibility. We are obligated to take care of one another and reciprocate that care we have received." The passage points us in three directions. The first is autobiographical. As we will hear later from his colleagues, Professor Jung's life has been committed to the struggle for a more just world. The second direction the passage points us toward is the work of the humanities, with their normative concerns for ethics and interpretation. The humanities that push us to cultivate conversations and empathy across difference and encourage us to consider how to live a life of meaning. The third direction the passage points us toward is the work of the social sciences, with their empirical concerns with human behavior. In the case of Professor Jeung, a sociologist known for his groundbreaking work in the sociology of religion, these concerns focus on understanding how human beings interact to build community, communities of faith, communities of support, communities that move toward justice. It's these normative empirical concerns and this interdisciplinary approach that guide Professor Jung's work and that will be on display this week in the conversations he and his colleagues invite us to join. It's a fitting time for Professor Jeung to visit our college. He teaches in the Department of Asian American Studies at San Francisco State University, a department in the nation's first College of Ethnic Studies, created in 1969 through the activism of the Third World Liberation Front student strike. This year, Brooklyn College launched an Asian American and Diasporic Studies minor, the college's first curricular program in the field of Asian American Studies. We're honored to have you join us to mark that effort. So, Professor Jeung, thank you for being with us to share your passion for a more just world, your scholarly work, guided by a desire to understand how communities come together to build that world, and your commitment to the field of Asian American Studies. We look forward to engaging in fruitful and important conversations with Professor Jeung and the leading experts who are joining us this week. Welcome to Brooklyn College, Professor Jeung. Thank you.
Okay, so over the last 8 months, our planning committee has worked with Russell to design events that are inspired by his work and his vision. And since you're now part of the Brooklyn College family, I'm going to just call you Russell. You're not part of us. So we are proud of the program that we have put together, and we consider it a labor of love and a gift from us to you. The poet Adrian Rich observed that when those who have the power to name and to socially construct reality choose not to see you or hear you, when someone with the authority of, say, a teacher describes the world and you are not in it, there's a moment of psychic disequilibrium, as if you looked in the mirror and saw nothing. As if you looked in the mirror and saw nothing. Too many of us have experienced that kind of dissonance, whether in classrooms or workplaces, or just as we move around the world. Now, Rich goes on to observe, it takes some strength and of soul, not just individual strength, but collective understanding, to resist this void, this non-being, into which you are thrust, to stand up, demanding to be seen and heard. Demanding to be seen and heard. Like the students of the Third World Liberation Front did in 1968, when they went on strike at San Francisco State University to create the first Department of Asian American Studies, the department where Russell now teaches. This week, we continue that work. We are centering voices and experiences and knowledges that are too often are still left out, silenced, or marginalized in the humanities and the social sciences, especially in some of our most traditional disciplines. In other words, we'll be doing the work of higher education, broadening minds and complicating narratives. Right? Broadening minds and complicating narratives. The narratives that we tell ourselves to make sense of our society and of our world, so that we can, in the words of author Maxine Hong Kingston, go learn to make our mind large as the universe is large, so that there is room for paradox. Right? Learn to make our mind large as the universe is large. We invite you all to join our ongoing conversation that will be held during our panels, and then to join us Thursday at 11 a.m. right here in this room as Russell delivers his Hess Memorial Lecture. We also invite you to enjoy the wonderful exhibition of archival materials related to Russell that Professor Helen Jorges, who's with us, put together at the library's entrance. Check it out. It's really, really good. Thank you so much, Helen, as usual. And Helen also did the artwork. And Helen, I also want to acknowledge Helen's work in developing the library guide that provides our students with free electronic access to Russell's writing. We want Hess Week events to be important parts of our students' educations, and Helen's work is essential to meeting that goal, so thank you very much. Now, events like these are always the work of a team of people, of dedicated people. And we acknowledge them in the program you received at the door. Please take a moment and read their names and honor their contributions. But also please indulge me very briefly as I must give some thanks. And if you've been to Wolf Institute events, you know that when I start giving thanks, I often cry, but I'm trying to keep it together today. But if it happens, it happens. It's just because I'm so grateful. Now, Professor Anderson already acknowledged the work of Kiana Benjamin, the Wolf Institute administrator, and I must second her acknowledgement. Without Kiana, none of this would be possible, and that's just the truth, and I think Kiana is hiding over here. I also want to acknowledge the work of the Hess Selection Committee that chose Russell to be our scholar. I am very grateful. We don't choose, the committee does, and every year I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to work. And I was incredibly lucky that they chose you to work with this year. I also wanna thank the Hess Planning Committee that has worked to make all this happen. Their names, again, are in the program. But if you're here, please stand up so we can acknowledge you. Thank you. And some of you were shy, and stay seated, Paulina. But thank you so much. And thanks to the library for letting us make this room our home for the week, and to Fatima Davids and Ruby Young in the control room for all things tech and for helping us create a video archive of Hess Week 2026 on our YouTube channel. In fact, if you go to our YouTube channel, we have archives all the way back to 2015 of Hess Week. That's how the channel began. So you can go back all the way to 2015. And of course, I want to thank the Robert L. Hess Fund for generously funding decades of Hess Weeks, allowing us to honor the memory of former Brooklyn College professor Hess, and allowing us to learn from our Hess scholars who, in the words of the fund, quote, represent the ideal of the educated individual, knowledgeable, thoughtful, inquiring, alive to the shared purpose and concerns lining all intellectual pursuits. And this year, we must also give thanks to the Frederick Ewing Civil Liberties and Academic Freedom Lecture. That fund will be sponsoring this afternoon's event on immigration at 2:15, right here. I'll see you all then. Now, I am honored to turn the microphone over to my colleague and a member of the Wolf Institute Board of Advisors, Professor Aliyah Rajan Singh, Professor of Africana Studies and Caribbean Studies, to continue today's ceremony.
Thank you so much. My turn. My glasses. So the board would like to thank two entities who have been real partners in making this week happen and who are co-sponsoring this week's events. First, thank you to the brand new Asian American and Diasporic Studies minor program. As was mentioned, the first curricular program to enter, right? Asian American Studies at Brooklyn College, and to its director, sociology professor, Professor Diana Pan. Professor Pan will be introducing Russell on Thursday at the Hess Memorial Lecture. Second, we thank the Brooklyn College Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islanders Serving Institute program known as BCAP, and its director, Megan Go, and to its program coordinator, Jamie Chan. Thank you so much. Brooklyn College is indeed better for the work these programs do with our students, for the doors they open to our students also. Now today we are lucky because we have some amazing people who have come here to introduce Professor Jeung to Brooklyn College. First, we have a short video from someone who was meant to join us today, but at the last minute could not due to a family matter. However, he wanted to share with us a few words about Russell. So let me introduce to you all scholar, public intellectual, educator, and founder and principal of Being Human, David Cuman Kim.
Hey there, I'm David Kim, and it is my great honor to be speaking in tribute to and about my dear brother, Russell Jeung. I'm sorry I can't be there in person with you, but I know this celebration of the Robert L. Hess Scholar-in-Residence Week is going to be a tremendous one. I also want to thank our host this week, Gaston Alonso. He's put a tremendous amount of work into this effort and to properly pay tribute to Russell. Russell and I have known each other for 30 plus years, and I have known him to be not just a tremendous scholar, an activist, but someone who strives and sets an example of living a life of integrity. He is, of course, known for his work in Asian American studies, as a scholar of sociology of religion, and as a teacher at San Francisco State University. But he's one of these unusual folks in the academy that has been able to integrate the life of the mind and the life of the spirit. You see this evidence in his scholarship on Asian American Christians, but also in his memoir and his account of what it is to live a life of moral witness. Russell exemplifies what I consider to be the best of Asian American studies. As we all know, the discipline starts really out of the community and in connection to the activism of the community. And he has lived this life and constructed this work in continuity with the community. So that he's not just writing about and as an activist for Chinese Americans, but he has been in what I would call a living solidarity with Southeast Asian refugees and immigrants, and again demonstrates what Asian American studies is really about, that our hearts and minds are not to be separated from the least amongst us, but when we do the work of justice, when we do the work of meaningful change, it's always in step and in alignment with others. Russell has, he's a son of San Francisco, but in many ways he's a spiritual godfather of Oakland. He's lived for 30 plus years in Oakland with a community of folks who share his commitments, not just to social justice, not just to the well-being of others, but to demonstrate what cross-racial solidarity should look like and can look like. I don't know anyone more than Russell that has done this in such a full and integrated way. We know him as a student of the founders of Asian American Studies, like people like Ling-Chi Wang and Lane Kim, and of course, a student of the great American sociologist Robert Bellah. But he himself has set an example for the rest of us of what Asian American Studies will be for the decades to come. I want to say, Russell, whether you are writing about sociology or religion, whether you're writing about your own life, whether you are accompanying immigrants and refugees in the courthouses, in the immigration courthouses in San Francisco, I admire you, I'm proud of you, and I love you. Congratulations, Russell.
So beautiful. Thank you, David. And I should point out that the speaker's full biographies are found in a program that you received when you entered. And now it's my honor to introduce someone who has known Russell since graduate school days. Jerry Park, Associate Professor of Sociology of Religion, Professor of Sociology at Baylor University and President of the Association for the Sociology of Religion. Jerry?
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajat Singh. It's a tremendous honor to be invited to speak in celebration of Russell Jeung, especially in such esteemed company. So let me start by asking a question. Oh, can we go backward? bummer.
So sorry.
Maybe click on that picture, yeah.
Yeah, and then I.
Yeah.
I think it's still on the video. You see the
Oh,
I think it's
maybe.
still on the video.
Let's see.
Is that the video?
Pull together at Brooklyn College.
Okay, close back. There you go. Let's see.
Sorry. Let me see. Let me try exiting out again.
Is it there? Oh, great. Woo. All right. Yes. Thank you so much. So I start with a question. What kind of a person is Russell? To answer that, I have to tell you a story about Christmas. I am a bit of a binger when it comes to holiday cards. My family gets about 30 of these every year from family and friends across the country, and this year I noticed a trend toward postcard-style cards, and I don't know if it's just me getting older, some incredibly tiny font. This is really like 5-point or smaller. So I actually asked my 11-year-old if the text was microscopic as it looked to me, and he agreed. So at least I know it's not just my eyes failing. The content of these cards, though, is usually what you'd expect. A one-year summary of the grown-ups and the kids. Here's where we went. Here's who we met. This is what we did. But this is what Russell wrote. While everyone was sending glossy postcards, Russell sent a full-size 8.5 by 11 single-sided summary. And allow me to share a bit of what he wrote. Now, this part's really important, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, okay? But it was pretty powerful to me, and I hope you can share the sentiment. Dear family and friends, for the past few months, I've been going to the San Francisco ICE courthouse to stand vigil with those in long lines waiting for appointments. Vigils are times of waiting and prayer. The ICE vigils have become poignant for me as I join with individuals facing possible detention, deportation, and permanent separation from their families. Russell goes on to describe a Christian couple with a 6-month-old baby, and while the wife was encouraged to go change a diaper, ICE took the husband away. He ended the letter by challenging us to see the Advent season as a vigil, not as a time for shopping, but as a time of accompanied waiting for the marginalized. So what kind of person spends their yearly catch-up newsletter focused on the tragedy faced by tens of thousands? What kind of a person with a middle-class income decides to live in the rough part of his city where a drive-by once left a bullet hole in the living room apartment of a support beam? I once publicly nudged Russell to help resolve the paradox that I saw in his writing. How is it that despite an upbringing that should have led to some model minority status and middle-class respectability, he went in a direction that was so radically different? Russell didn't answer that question explicitly, and with good reason, because his life is the answer. I've had the privilege of knowing Russell since the mid-1990s. We split shoestring budget hotel rooms at academic gatherings for years just to make things work. And I remember when he made the decision in the early 2000s to skip those traditional academic-focused meetings in favor of charting his own path. Some at the time would have said that this was really going to be detrimental to Russell's career, but he weighed out career ambition against spiritual calling. And look at where it led him. Dr. Jeung is a premier scholar with 5 books and scores of articles. He brings the academic chops he gained at Berkeley to the real world. Terms like identity, social capital, culture, they can seem abstract even to college students. But Russell's research finds the bridges to connect everyday social patterns with these concepts. He threads the needle so perfectly between disciplinary rigor and human accessibility. And when the pandemic hit, Russell co-founded Stop AAPI Hate, as was mentioned earlier. This work didn't just provide data, it revealed the breadth of discrimination facing our elders, our grandmothers, uncles, and parents. It highlighted a hidden mental health crisis that the model minority stereotype often blinds us to. And Russell's activist work played no small part in raising that awareness and forcing the right people in the right places to finally take action. Russell, it's an honor to celebrate you. May the people you encounter here at the Wolf Institute know the inspiration you have been to me and to so many others, and may you continue to grow with the many new faces that greet you during your time here as the Hess Scholar-in-Residence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Yes, Russell, so this is our version of the old television show. This is your life. And we're not done yet, because there's someone who, like Jerry, has known Russell, has known you since graduate school. And that person could not be here today, but wanted to make sure that they were part of today's celebration. And so she sent us a recording for us to share with you. So I'll introduce to you Carolyn Chen, Professor of Ethnic Studies at the University of California, Berkeley, co-director of the Berkeley Center for the Study of Religion, and executive director of the Asian Pacific American Religions Research Initiative. Carolyn.
Good morning. I'm honored to be invited to introduce Dr. Russell Jeung to you as the Hess Scholar-in-Residence, and I'm deeply regretful that I cannot be there in person. Many people know Russell, as I'll call Dr. Jeung, by his public persona as an activist, the founder of Stop AAPI Hate and one of Time Magazine's most influential people in 2021. Some also know him as a leading scholar writing on Asian American religious experience. He's the author of 4 books and countless articles on Asian American religions. But today, I want to give you a personal glimpse into Russell Jeung, who I've known as a friend, colleague, and collaborator for more than 30 years. I've known Russell since 1994, when we were both doctoral students in sociology at UC Berkeley. We quickly became friends since both of us were interested in Asian Americans and religion, and we had also both come to Berkeley to study with the well-known sociologist Robert Bellah. My memories of Russell from grad school are not of him at the university writing and reading, but rather Russell at his home in Oakland, which you could say was also his field site. He had worked on a research project on Southeast Asian American youth and gangs. In order to really understand the lives of the people that he was studying, he had moved into their neighborhood. Russell and his roommate, Dan Schmidt, lived in a ground floor, 1-bedroom apartment in the Oak Park apartment complex in Fruitvale, an area of Oakland that's known as the murder doves, due to the high rates of drug-related violence. The neighborhood was full of dilapidated houses, graffiti, and chain-link fences, and the ground was often littered with used needles. But none of this captured the spirit of Oak Park, which was a rundown 2-story apartment complex from the 1960s, built around an outdoor concrete courtyard. Oak Park was teeming with life. Kids playing tag, running around the courtyard, up and down the stairs. From one apartment, Mexican mariachi music booming from a box, another apartment blasting Cambodian folk music outside its window, and then there was always the smell of food wafting in the air, a mixture of tamales, lemongrass, and kids with fists full of potato chips. The residents were all immigrants, mostly Mexican immigrants and Cambodian refugees, people of all ages, from infants, teenagers to new parents and elderly grandmas. Russ's apartment was one of the first units on the ground as you entered the complex. His door was always open, and it was the place you might stop in first. His apartment functioned like the complex's common room, where people would gather and visit with one another. His apartment was always filled with people asking Russell to play, or grandmas asking him to translate something, or giving him a plate of food. Russell made regular runs to Costco so that he had a generous supply of junk food for all the visitors. At Oak Park, Russell lived like everyone else. Compared to most units, which were occupied by families of 4 to sometimes 8 and even 10 people cramped in a tiny apartment, Russell and Dan's 1-bedroom felt palatial. But Russell did not take that space for granted. Every night, he and Dan unrolled their sleeping bags and slept on the floor. Without permanent beds, they were able to take as little space as possible for themselves and instead reserve it for others, for the tutoring sessions, the English classes, and the citizenship classes that Dan and Russell organized inside their tiny apartment. On his small graduate student stipend, Russell even bought a used minivan so that he could shuttle around as many kids as possible. The minivan seats were stained with crayons and punch, and it smelled like kid sweat and Cheetos. One time, he even drove a Cambodian shaman and his family from Oak Park to Long Beach, an 8-hour drive, in order to procure the exact herbs so that the shaman could perform a healing ritual according to Cambodian tradition. When I remember Oak Park, I can still see and hear the crowd of little kids pulling on his sleeve, shouting, "Russell, Russell!" and the Cambodian grandma shuffling towards him with her arms outstretched offering him food. "Russell, Russell." It was at Oak Park that Russell learned what it was like to be an immigrant, but also what it felt like to be a guest, welcomed, fed, and cared for by people who were themselves new to America. Although Russell's time in Oak Park started off as a graduate research project, the fruits of his labor went beyond the aim of scholarship to produce knowledge. Rather, Oak Park was an experiment in practicing radical kinship, one informed by his faith as a Christian and the belief that we are all beloved children of God. Russell's activism has always been about widening the circle of belonging to include others who've been excluded because of citizenship, race, religion, and more. His vision of social justice is more than the legal baseline of rights and restitution, but about creating the conditions for radical belonging. It's that same vision that motivated him to use his social science research to track the patterns of Asian American hate incidences during the pandemic, a project that has grown into Stop AAPI Hate, the most powerful Asian American social movement in U.S. history. The topic of belonging is also central to Russell's scholarship on race and religion. I cannot tell you enough how important Russell's work has been for the field of Asian American religions. His first book, Faithful Generations, Race and New Asian American Churches, examines how religion shapes the contours of Asian American racial belonging. He shows how Asian American pan-ethnicity is not simply a state or secular formation, but also a religious formation that in turn guides Asian American ideas of peoplehood, justice, and politics. Russell's second book, Sustaining Faith Traditions, is a volume that he and I co-edited of essays that examine how Asian American and Latinx second generation negotiate racial, religious, and ethnic belonging in the U.S. Russell's third book is his moving spiritual memoir, At Home in Exile. The title, At Home in Exile, speaks volumes about his political and ethical commitments as an Asian American and a person of faith. In his fourth book, Family Sacrifices, The Worldviews and Ethics of Chinese Americans, Russell looks at the beliefs and practices by which secular Chinese Americans find meaning, identity, and belonging. He is now working on a fifth book about our immigrant heritage as Americans and how Asian spiritual and religious traditions might provide new ethical foundations for welcome and belonging in American society. Together, Russell's oeuvre of scholarship on race and religion offers a powerful and compelling portrait of who Asian Americans are and what is most important to them. I am excited for you, the Brooklyn College community, to spend the next few days getting to know Dr. Russell Jeung. Let me warn you, he'll come off like a regular guy. He doesn't use big words. He eats hot dogs from Costco, and he rumbles a lot. But don't be fooled. You are in the presence of a living legend, a one-of-a-kind scholar, an activist who is inspiring and brilliant. I hope that you will learn from him as I have. Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to just hand the microphone or the podium over to Brooklyn College's 2025-26 Hess Scholar-in-Residence, Russell M. Jeung.
Thank you, and this is sort of like watching the ending credits of your life. And we keep on thanking everybody who's been part of my life. And so I'd also like to thank, in these ending credits, the people who brought us here today. Thank you, President Anderson, Dean Napoli, Provost Bedford, for hosting and organizing and running this amazing college. It's a difficult time to run institutes of higher ed, and so I appreciate your work and know how difficult it can be. I'd like to thank the Hess family, the Wolf Institute for, again, funding and organizing this incredible week. I think Brooklyn College is really fortunate to be able to integrate the humanities into the life of the entire college and to really explore these critical issues for today. Thank you, Helen Gorgeous, for hosting or for organizing the exhibit. I hope it's an interactive library exhibit where you could play with little Russell dolls and
Yeah.
the best in interactive. And thank you especially to Gaston and Kiana for organizing the week, for the Hess Selection Committee for picking me, and for planning. Gaston is producing this event. It's got a cast of millions, and I just feel like I'm a bit player in this huge production. So thank you, Gaston and Kiana, for organizing this. I'm also grateful for the people who presented today, for Jerry, Jerry, David, and Carolyn, we were all grad students together. Deborah Lee here, we also knew her when we were in grad school. And we were, that was 30 years ago, but we were only 5 years old at the time. And so we were a bunch of kindergartners running around, getting to know each other and doing research on gangs. So thank you for coming, for sharing, and for your friendship over the years. I think that's what's sustained me in this period in academia. So Shay Meng, Executive Director of Mekong NYC, is here. I'm grateful for her. And I'm especially honored today and feel very loved that my wife, Dr. Joanne Jeung, is here with us. So let's appreciate her. For her love. Not too many people would move into a ghetto, an apartment filled with roaches, but Joanne did. And we actually lived across the hallway from a guy named Roach. And if you want to hear the story about the human guy named Roach, you could read the book. So you've heard a little bit about my story, and I'm going to talk a little bit today just to get a sense of what this week will be about. A lot of my life has been about, like Dr. Kellen said, about what it's like to learn to be an immigrant, to move in the United States as a newcomer, to adjust, to acculturate, to adapt to a brand new setting. But I'm actually 5th generation. So my great-great-great-grandparents came to California in the 1860s. And despite my family being here for generations, because I'm Asian, I still feel like a perpetual foreigner. I feel that sense of non-belonging, that sense of non-acceptance. And so during the pandemic, when we saw people afraid of the virus, we also saw the rise of anti-Asian hate. And I could relate to it, even though I'm a 5th generation California, because of my racial uniform. I could be seen as a newcomer, as an outsider who doesn't belong, as someone who's a disease carrier bringing the racism, or bringing the disease. And so that's why we started Stop AAPI Hate. We, as an Asian American scholar who's supposed to be attuned to what's going on in the community, as someone who comes out of the legacy of the Third World Liberation Front, my role as a professor is not necessarily to study people and create knowledge, but it's actually to understand how we create the conditions for change in our community. And so by being attuned to our history and knowing that whenever diseases came from Asia, Asians were scapegoated and attacked. Whenever diseases came from Asia, policies would be created to exclude Asians, knowing that. That's why we created Stop API Hate, because we knew the pandemic would bring about a surge of racism against Asian Americans. I had hoped during the pandemic that it would be an opportunity for the United States, that when confronted by a global epidemic, that we in the United States would actually come together to confront a common enemy, right, to deal with the virus. I had hoped that maybe because the virus was global, that nations would come together and actually work towards the health of the entire world, to share vaccines, to share information, to share masks, because that would be the opportunity, that would be the time when the world would come together to confront a global crisis. But sadly, instead, we saw what happened during the pandemic, and it actually exposed, to me at least, maybe the worst of the United States. And you could see that in the COVID death rates and the racial disparities. You could see it here, especially in New York, what happened, and the pain and suffering of millions of people. The pandemic really exposed the cracks in the United States, and it heightened the disparities, the inequalities. It created a greater polarization, and we see it today now in the second administration of this president. And what we've seen is that anti-Asian hate has expanded, and that we found new scapegoats to attack: Haitian immigrants, Somali refugees, my neighbors who are Latino and Southeast Asian. And so what we see going across the United States with the ICE raids is really domestic terrorism. The communities where I live in terror and fear on a daily basis. My neighbors say they're human hunting, because that's how they experience the current situation. So it's a really dark time, at least where I'm coming from. 1 out of 7 Asians in the US are undocumented, so people don't realize that large swaths of our Asian American community too are living under that terror and fear. I think the pandemic exposed the cracks of late-stage capitalism, and you could see now how the rich are getting richer. You could see how we're going to war out of violence and greed. And I don't know how to explain it to the young people I'm teaching these days, except for it's just the consequence of late-stage capitalism. It's clear. It's a dark time. And the students I teach, and it's probably similar here at Brooklyn College, feel a lot of anxiety and stress. And as you, who are professors and faculty and administrators, you probably feel it too, how they feel a higher levels of depression, anxiety with the climate crisis that's not being addressed, right? With AI and how the government is extending contracts so that they could have fully autonomous weapons, right? AI weapons. It's a dark time. But from the pandemic, I also saw 2 other lessons for me. One is that we did create Stop API Hate, and we saw, as Dr. Chen said, the largest movement for Asian Americans in American history. And that's how we're going to come out of the darkness, is to create movements of change. To learn how to organize, to learn how to educate ourselves, to learn how to raise students' critical consciousness so that we can act together to face the darkness. And that's what my particular focus of study is. How do we build these movements of change? And it's, again, it's a different generation. How do we gather young people to work in multiracial, multi-generational solidarities? Dr. David Kim talked about how I really sought to live my life in solidarity with others. And I think building that solidarity, building those movements of change are what we're going to need. And I think some of the conversations this week will be dealing with how do we build those movements? How do we enlarge our solidarity? How do we see each other as family together? The other thing I saw coming out of the pandemic was that we need to have the moral courage to confront what we're facing. That our religious traditions are the sources of wisdom, are the sources of virtue by which we can confront what's happening. And that today, more than ever, despite a decline in religion, we need to reclaim our moral virtues. We need to reclaim the humanity of all of us. And that's why I appreciate the Wolf Institute and its Humanities Center. We need religion to develop that moral vision to confront the darkness. Joanne and I were just walking around the other day, and we saw at one church a quote by Sojourner Truth. And she wrote, "I will not let my life's light to be determined by the darkness around me. I will not let my life's light be determined by the darkness around me." And that's my encouragement for all of us this week, to see our common light in the darkness, to see what values we hold together, to see what humanity draws us together, to see how we could see ourselves as one common human family, and confront the darkness that won't define us, but instead we can use this week, the conversations today and the upcoming days, to really see what light can we shine towards each other and with each other to brighten the darkness. So thank you, Brooklyn College, for inviting me. I really look forward to this week and the conversations we'll have with faculty and students. Thank you.
Just let to recognize the light in each of us, I think is a really important lesson in this moment. So thank you for bringing your light to us and helping us find our own light in the college. I too was 5 years old back in the late 1980s in Berkeley, California, where I studied in the same building as Russell and Carolyn and others, and as well as was a good friend with Deborah Lee, who's joining us today. Our last Hess Scholar, Melissa Mary, also had a Berkeley connection, so I'm beginning to get a sense that I don't choose the scholars, it's just a lot of Berkeley connection. Good people bring the light from Berkeley here. So, two things. We have a full program. We're gonna take a break for lunch, and we'll be back here at 2:15 for a rockstar panel on Asian American immigration in times of mass deportation. But before we go, I want to ask you to please give Russell a loving, long applause. Welcome him to our college. Thank you, everyone, for joining us to welcome him, and we will see you at our